So, since I have moved to London, a lot of people have actually asked me, how is London treating you? I have the context with respect to software engineering, so this is something that I will keep as a reference. Now, let's first of all talk about the expected salary. You can definitely expect a salary. So let's assume that you're a software engineer earning, let's say, 99,000 pounds, and let's try to do a breakdown of what the expenses are going to look like. The second most important expense after your taxation is rents are very high in London. If you are coming for experiences, if you are coming for a better living, if you are coming for quality of life, London is the place to be. So overall, if you total this up around your housing and billings, so this expense can go around. So since I have moved to London, a lot of people have actually asked me, how is London treating you? How it is actually to live in London? What are the expenses looking like, right? And as a software engineer, is it even worth to move to London? Will you save enough amount of money or not? So I thought, why not, let's say, make a video about it, because I've been here for I guess 3 months. Of course, the initial 3 months is a very less amount of time to actually see a lot of different aspects, but I got a rough estimate on how exactly it is to live in London, what are the expenses like, and in this particular video I'll give you a very detailed breakdown, a lot of important things that you need to keep in mind if you are somebody who is actually willing to move to London, let's say as a software engineer. I'm keeping the software engineer as a base because maybe, let's say, if you are in a different profession, you will be able to at least scale up or scale down your salary correspondingly. I have the context with respect to software engineering, so this is something that I will keep as a reference. So in this video, we'll do a detailed breakdown of what exactly it takes, what are the expenses, what are the final take-home salary that you get if you are working as a software engineer in London. So without any further ado, let's just start. But before starting the video, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing, because we are going to put some really awesome content regarding tech and career in tech coming up ahead on this channel. So let's just start. So before moving forward in the video, I would like to talk about the new System Design 2.0 cohort that we have recently launched. If you're somebody who is actually willing to apply for a lot of product-based companies and you are technically confused on where to actually prepare for low-level design, high-level design and machine coding rounds, then you are actually at the right place. In the new system design cohort, we are going to actually include all the relevant concepts around high-level design, low-level design, machine coding, and this time we have kept it kind of bigger and better. This time we have specifically added a lot of company-specific interview problem solving, both in HLD and LLD. We have added interesting concepts around distributed system like Lamport clock, vector clock, consensus algorithms and whatnot. The complete curriculum of this System Design 2.0 cohort is mentioned in the link in the description section below. You can use this coupon code coming on your screen to get massive discounts altogether. There is a dedicated video on the channel where you can find all the details regarding the course syllabus. But what I can assure you is, based on my experience working as a software engineer and all of the interviews that I have given, this is going to be a very comprehensive course where we are going to talk about all the relevant things that is going to be necessary, not just for you to crack software engineer interviews, but also work as a software engineer. So do check out all the links in the description section below. All the course syllabus, all the dates, everything necessary is already mentioned there. So now let's come back to the video. Now let's first of all talk about the expected salary, because once we start taking into expenses into consideration, we need to also understand what is the general expected salary here. So see, if you are a fresher, let's say you are an SD1, you can definitely expect a salary in the range of 65,000 pounds to 80,000 pounds. If you are a SD2, right, then you can expect your salary to be in the range of 80,000 pounds to, let's say, 100,000 pounds. If you are a senior software engineer, then you can expect your base salary to be beyond 100,000 pounds, let's say somewhere around 110 to 115,000 pounds and so on. This salary, I am considering only the base component, that is the cash component. So let's say if you are working in a company which is listed on the stock market, or even nowadays, even in the case of startups, you get a separate component of RSUs or ESOPs. So let's say you are working in FANG, there will be a base cash component, there will be a separate bonus component, and there will be a separate RSU or the restricted stock unit component. So this salary band that I talked about is just the core basic cash no bonus, no stocks included. Generally, stocks are on top of it, bonuses are on top of it, whether it be your joining bonus, relocation bonus, performance annual bonus, right? Whatever it is, it's all beyond the base component, right? So for this complete calculation of the video, I have taken into consideration that let's say you are somewhere around, let's say an SD2, for example, and you are on the higher band of SD2. And let's say your salary, the cash component is 99,000 pounds, and we will do the calculation on top. Now you might be asking that why I have taken this 99,000 pound, why not just round it off to 100,000 pounds? So there are a few tax implications that comes up once you cross 100,000 pounds. So to avoid those extra tax implications, I have tried to kept it simple because the overall rough figures are not going to move too much. So let's assume that you are a software engineer earning, let's say 99,000 pounds, and let's try to do a breakdown of what the expenses are going to look like. Also, one quick thing to keep in mind, I am talking about all of the things in terms of the average figures. Whatever expenses you are going to get is going to solely depend on what kind of lifestyle you want to live. Your salary is going to be dependent on what kind of interviews you are giving. Your expenses is going to be dependent on what kind of lifestyle, what place you live at, what kind of food you try to consume, and so on. So take everything with a pinch of salt. This is something that I have observed. This is something my own opinion. But once you start living here, the expenses might go up or down accordingly. So now let's straight away go to the expenses part. So when you earn 99,000 pounds, that's not the salary that is going to get credited into your bank account. So ideally there are deductions on top of it. So there are three major deductions that you have to keep in mind. One is the income tax, second is the national insurance, third is a pension. So similar to the context of India, so in India also we have slab based systems, right? That some certain X amount of money is having no tax. Then from X plus 1 to let's say X plus 3, you have let's say 10% of tax. Then from X plus 4 to X plus 7, there is let's say 15% of tax and so on. So this similar kind of like a slab rate is present in the UK as well. There is some initial part of the money which is let's say completely tax free, then there is a 20% slab, then there is a 40% slab and so on. So I don't want to go into too much of the taxation details. The rough average figure, let's say if you are earning 99,000 pounds, approximately the income tax that you are going to actually fill is going to be 27,000 pounds. And mind this thing that this will be already deducted from your salary. So whatever salary you will get will be after deduction of income tax. Apart from the income tax, there is national insurance that is going to take care of all of your health related needs. That is an extra deduction that you are going to do on top of income tax, that will be roughly around 4,000 pounds. And then there is a pension contribution. This pension contribution is something that is generally variable. Like for example, you can even, if you want, you can reduce it. But overall, generally, I have seen people keeping it 5% of their salary. And the interesting part is that if you do a pension contribution, your company is also going to do an add-on contribution on top of it. So generally, people keep it to the maximum. And let's say if you take 5% of your salary, that comes as 2,500 pounds a year. So if you deduct all of this, so the total deduction comes approximately around 33,500 pounds. So this is going to leave you with approximately 65,500 pounds in the whole year. And if you do it a monthly calculation, that comes as 5,450 pounds, approximately 5,500 pounds a month is going to be the final amount that is going to get credited into your bank account. From this amount, you have to do all of your expenses. And yes, taxes are pretty much very high in UK, right? UK is one of the, like I would say in my experience, it's one of the very highly taxed countries. Even in India, the highest tax slab is around 30% and then you have cess and etc. on top of it. But here the highest tax slab is definitely beyond 30%, it's 40%, and then the more salary you get, then there are extra tax implications as well. So this is something that you have to definitely keep in mind. So now, the second most important expense after your taxation is the housing part. So rents are very high in London. So London is divided into like different zones. So the closer you live to the central London, the higher will be your rent. And trust me, majority of the people spend the majority of their income in the rental part. When I was doing a house hunt, what I was able to easily understand is that, let's say if you want to have a home in, let's say zone 2 to zone 4, approximately, let's say in these three zones, that is zone 2, zone 3 and zone 4, then a 1-bedroom apartment can easily cost you in the range of 1,600 pounds to 2,200 pounds. Now, interestingly, what a lot of people actually do, they do not take, let's say, a 1-bedroom apartment. A lot of people actually take a 2-bedroom apartment, because it's not like the 2-bedroom apartment cost is double. So let's say, for example, in zone 4, if there is a building where 1-bedroom apartment is, let's say, 1800 pounds, then 2-bedroom apartment is going to be approximately around 2200 pounds. So just by adding 400 extra pounds, you will be able to get 2-bedroom apartment. And then let's say if you're living with somebody, so you will be able to split this expense altogether. So considering that, let's say you take a 1-bedroom apartment, like let's take the worst case possible, right, that you have one single apartment for you. So 1-bedroom apartment definitely can easily cost you 1800 to 2000 pounds. And again, this is somewhere for zone 2 and zone 3. If you keep on going outwards, let's say zone 5, zone 6, the prices are going to go drastically low, but you have to keep in mind that your commute time is going to increase a lot. The public transport in London can be a bit erratic sometimes. Plus, the public transport is also quite expensive if you compare that with other countries. So that is also an extra added cost that will come. So you have to consider whether you want to save time or not. So let's say if you consider 1800 to 2000 pounds, then on top of this rent, there are 4 major utilities that you have to keep in mind. One is going to be the, let's say, internet. Generally, the internet cost is going to be around 30 to 40 pounds. We can consider 40 pounds. Water bill is going to be there. Let's consider that as 30 pounds. Then there is going to be gas and electricity. So all the heating that you get in your apartment as well as the electricity is also going to be taxed separately. The general figure that I have seen people actually paying is around 100 to 120 pounds. But do keep in mind, there are some new apartments in London nowadays which also have air conditioning. So this cost can go upwards as well, right? So let's consider 120 pounds plus. There is a council tax that you have to pay. This council tax can come up around 150 to 170 pounds. So overall, if you total this up around your housing and billings, so this expense can go around 2300 pounds per month, right? But if you share an apartment, let's say you got an apartment for 2200 pounds and you share that with one person, then this cost can drastically go low, because then per person cost for the housing part is going to be just 1200 to 1300 pounds. That is going to be kind of like a steal deal, and you will be able to live, let's say, closer to the central London, which is somewhere in zone 2 or zone 3. So that is something that you have to definitely consider. Now the same thing happens for the perspective of groceries. If you have to get food and let's say you are sometimes eating out and also cooking food yourself, then it also depends on what kind of grocery stores you are actually aiming to. Let's say if you go to something like Marks and Spencer's, that is going to be extremely expensive. If you go to something like, let's say, Adil or let's say Lidl, then those are slightly considered cheaper. But let's keep something like an average figure. Let's say you go to something like Waitrose, which is slightly, I believe, on the average side. So approximately the per person cost is going to be somewhere around 300 pounds, because apart from your daily I would say groceries, there are a lot of cleaning supplies, etc. that you have to also take. So this is something that I have taken approximately slightly on the higher side, because I'm assuming that let's say you're going to cook more, and it also depends, like if you're coming to London, one of the most important things is the quality of living, the quality of life, the quality of food. So you definitely would like to spend on the good quality food, if let's say that is your consideration. So that is something that I have kept as 300 pounds per month. And let's say if you're going to eat out, let's say you are sometimes taking coffee, sometimes going to dinner, then easily per meal for one person can easily cost for around 10 to 15 pounds. And if you go to kind of like, let's say, Indian restaurants or slightly on the luxury side of restaurants, then it can easily cost 30 to 40 pounds per meal. So that I have averaged out as somewhere around 150 pounds, that let's say you go to let's say go out 2 times or 3 times, let's say for Indian restaurants, and the rest of the time you go to something like, let's say, Chipotle, right? That's I really like it. So the overall average cost is going to be somewhere around 450 pounds on food, including your groceries. This is also something that is, I would say, I have taken as an average. You can drastically reduce it or maybe increase it as well, depending on what kind of a life you are living. Now, transport is also kind of like expensive in London. So let's say if you have to travel using the tube, or let's say the overground metro, or let's say sometimes you have to take, let's say, the national railway, overall you can take somewhere around 200 to 220 pounds, because let's say you have to take a travel card, you have to take a rail pass, right, to get some discounts, let's say, on top. So there will be a lot of cost. For example, for like if I have to go to office, I take the southeastern line, which is slightly on the expensive side because it's super fast. It just takes one station for me to reach to office. In 7 minutes I'm able to reach King's Cross. So the overall costing of that particular line is slightly on the higher side. But if you take tubes are going to be slightly a bit more cheaper. But it's not like tubes are also rated at the same rate in the whole day. There are peak hours, there are non-peak hours. So depending on when you are traveling, this cost can go up and down. If you are living in London, you would definitely want to travel, let's say, to the nearby countries. So sometimes those kind of extra added trains and costings are also going to come up. So that's something that I have kept as 200 to 220 pounds per month that you're going to spend in the transport. Now, London is a place where every time you will find something interesting to do. There are so many Broadway shows, there are some interesting parks, right? There are so many places to travel and whatnot. So let's say if you are spending approximately 50 pounds on the gym, there are some weekend trips that you are spending for, let's say, 100 pounds. Sometimes you are eating out, right? There are subscriptions that you have to actually pay for and so on, right? When, let's say, if you go to a country in Europe, then also there will be some costing on top of that. So let's say if you keep this particular budget also slightly on the higher side, because you should try to consider the worst case possible. So that's why I'm keeping slightly higher figures overall so that you can consider the worst possible case. So I've kept the total lifestyle expense to be around 650 pounds. This can drastically reduce because you're not going to go to Europe like every month, right? There will be some very hectic office days, right? Sometimes you are not even in London and so on. So, but still the higher figure I've kept as 650 pounds so that you have a good buffer to actually spend there as well. So the final monthly budget is going to come around, let's say if you have a 5,450 pound salary in a nutshell, then 2,300 pounds approximately on rent and bills that you can definitely reduce by sharing, 450 pounds on food, 220 pounds on travel, 650 pounds on lifestyle. This comes as the total overall average spending of around 3,600 to 3,700 pounds, which will technically leave you with 1,700 to 1,800 pounds saving a month. Now trust me on the fact that if you spend wisely, if you plan your living wisely, if you're living with a partner, or let's say you are eating a lot of time in office, because nowadays a lot of offices have free food like Google, Meta, etc., then this costing you can drastically reduce to below 3,000 pounds very easily. All of these figures I've kept slightly inflated because again, initially you don't realize how much you're spending, and once you start keeping track of things, then you are able to actually get the idea of where the actual money is going. So if you are able to reduce it drastically, and it's not like it's going to take you a lot of effort, with very minimal efforts you will be able to easily reduce it below 3,000 pounds. And again, the majority savings are going to come up from the housing part. Then you will easily save around 2,000 to 2,500 pounds in this particular range if you are able to live wisely. So this is going to be the overall saving per month, as well as your bonuses are on top of it, your stock options are on top of it, which are generally very good in UK. So this is something that you have to definitely consider. So overall, I would say that if you are coming for experiences, if you are coming for a better living, if you are coming for quality of life, London is the place to be. But all of these costings you have to keep in mind. Also, if you are a fresher, then of course your initial salary is also going to be slightly on the lesser part. So this is something that you have to consider, that maybe on the housing part you have to cut down a lot of things. Let's say on the food and the groceries part, maybe you have to cut down a lot of things, because then you should also focus initially on your savings as well, right? So this was kind of like an overall slightly inflated average figures. I don't want to be over optimized that okay, you will be able to save, let's say, 4,000 pounds. That's not going to happen unless you are cutting down on a lot of things. So these figures I have kept slightly inflated, and this is completely based on my overall observations, what I am able to see people actually do. So let me know in the comments if I have actually missed some things, right? I can make a dedicated video on the comparison of, let's say, NSD to salary in India compared to UK, how much you will be able to save, let's say, in a city like Bangalore versus London. I would be happy to make a video around that. That being said, let's wrap this particular video here. We are going to meet soon in the next set of videos. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. I'm Sanket Singh, signing off.